I'm Jerold Gelfand, producer, videographer, and editor for Blossoms. Thank you for your participation in the Blossoms initiative. Your role as a producer, videographer, and/or editor will help facilitate math and science-based learning modules viewed by high school students around the world. This video will guide you in adhering to our proven format for optimal learning and classroom integration. Depending on your level of experience, parts of this presentation may be a review. If you follow these simple but comprehensive guidelines, you will create video modules that not only teach but also inspire students to think about how math and science can be incorporated into their daily lives. Our vision at Blossoms is to develop a large free repository of video lessons for high school math and science classes created by gifted volunteer teachers from around the world. We have created over 100 video lessons that have been translated into multiple languages. All lessons have been archived and are available for download free of charge. Our goal is to inspire students from around the world and from all walks of life to get excited about math and science. Our lessons show students in a hands-on way how exciting and fascinating math, science, engineering, and technology can be. High school students typically learn in classroom settings with a traditional lecture format. At Blossoms, we try to think outside the classroom, utilizing location settings that correspond to the subject. For instance, we did a video on the components of blood. Here, we shot much of our video in a blood research lab. This enabled us to use multiple stand-up locations and provided us with many B-roll opportunities. Another example is a video we did on geologic time. While shooting this lesson, we utilized a long corridor at MIT to help us demonstrate the Earth's geologic timeline. We also shot at Harvard University's Natural History Museum, which offered us amazing B-roll of prehistoric creatures and geologic formations. Please take the time to look at these and other lessons from our archive. Some lessons that focus on math equations and scientific formulas offer less obvious location options. It's your job to advise the lesson creator on locations that will help the viewer get excited about the subject matter. Use your discretion and utilize creative locations whenever possible. The presenter usually is the architect of the video module. The presenter may be a professor, a postdoctoral student, a high school teacher, or an expert in their field. They're responsible for coming up with the concept, writing the pseudo script, and acting as on-camera talent. The pseudo script is a final version of the script that is broken down into sections. It lays out a basic script and might have some visual comments. This is not an actual word-for-word script, but rather a detailed outline of the lesson content in script format. Once the pseudo script is approved by the Blossoms team, and at least 1 week before filming begins, the storyboard can be created. The storyboard is a document created by the producer and taken from conversations with the content provider and notes from the pseudo script. This document is a constant work in progress, and its purpose is to keep the entire team on the same page while maintaining a sense of continuity throughout the production process. The content provider will use it to update the script and add visual suggestions. The videographer will use it during pre-production and the actual shoot to make sure all shots have been recorded and accounted for. The editor will use it during the post-production process to adhere to the vision of the producer and the content provider. The storyboard is to be created in a spreadsheet format such as Microsoft Excel and should contain the script, scene numbers, shot numbers, scene blocking, on-camera descriptions, voiceover, music, sound effects, camera shot descriptions, links to pictures, and other visual support, including text graphics, PowerPoint notes, and editing effects. Use your own style to create a storyboard that communicates your creative process to other members of your production team. This may be obvious to many of you, but simple oversights during the shoot can significantly affect the final product. An important part of the production process is the pre-production phase. If you spend the time to create a detailed storyboard, these types of oversights will be significantly reduced. The following should be considered prior to the shoot. Conduct a detailed site survey. A site survey can make or break your production. We'll talk more about site surveys later in this video. Make sure the script has been signed off prior to the shoot. You want to avoid having your crew sit around while your presenter is making last-minute script changes. Be mindful of the ratio of talking heads to B-roll. If you properly storyboard your production, you will notice this ratio. Always present visual options whenever possible. Ensure you have all releases in order, including those for images, locations, charts, etc. Again, obvious to some, but you want to make sure your locations have been approved ahead of time. Also, try to have all your visual elements approved prior to the shoot. If there's any doubt to getting a specific B-roll release, make sure your talent speaks the entire script directly to the camera rather than just laying down voiceover. Remember, time is money, and everybody's time is valuable. With the lack of pre-production, a one-day shoot could easily turn into a two-day shoot. Budgets need to be adhered to, and people's time need to be considered. Depending on your location and arrangement, the videographer, producer, and editor might be one person or maybe split into multiple roles. The producer will be working directly with the presenter, videographer, and editor. The producer is responsible for creating a storyboard from the pseudo script that is approved by the presenter and the Blossoms team. The producer assists with location and prop ideas. The content provider has the final say, but you are the visual expert and your ideas are valuable. The producer assists with logistical arrangements. Your role is to make sure the shoot stays on schedule. If the budget calls for a one-day shoot, you need to make on-the-spot decisions to make sure your schedule is adhered to. The producer works directly with the videographer to make sure locations have been surveyed and approved. The producer also works directly with the editor to come up with design and post-production ideas and concepts. The videographer works directly with the producer. They perform site surveys of all secured locations. The videographer shoots all shots following the detailed storyboard. And the videographer also transcodes all camera footage in accordance to the editor's preferred format. The editor works directly with the producer and content provider. They secure video directly from the videographer. The editor follows the storyboard to create the final high-resolution video. The editor exports and uploads drafts to the producer and content provider for change requests. The editor also uploads a final high-resolution format to MIT AMPS according to their current technical specifications. Once the content provider completes the pseudo script and the Blossoms team has approved it, the producer must communicate with the presenter either in person, by phone, or via Skype. This needs to be more than a simple email exchange. This conversation must cover the following: general overview and understanding of the current video module, and a careful review of each scene to determine location, visual support, production details, and unique post-production considerations. From this meeting, the producer can determine locations to survey and an overall visual concept to eventually create a storyboard. Locations can play a huge role in the overall quality of the finished video. Try to think outside the classroom. If you're doing a video on urban renewal, it might make sense to get out into the community and shoot your segments in parks and congregated areas. If you're shooting a video on the economics of green technology, it might make sense to shoot with solar panels or windmills in the background. Better yet, try to shoot inside a factory that assembles solar panels. Remember, you are the creative force behind this project. This is your chance to engage the students who will be watching your final product. Use your imagination and have fun with it. Once you have looked over the pseudo script, talked to the content provider, and have determined your location ideas, it's time to make sure your location will fit your needs. Every location has logistical and technical challenges that need to be worked out. Here are some obvious and not so obvious things to consider. Get permission from proper authorities. Even though you may be using a public area, permits may be required. Make sure if you're shooting indoors, there is a way to block out unwanted light, noise, or other sounds. Background sound can be fine if it complements the overall theme of the video. Traffic noise might be well tolerated if the topic of your video is urban planning or the technology behind the gas combustion engine. If your topic is unrelated to the background noise, it will take away from your subject matter. This also includes air conditioning sounds and other unwanted noise. Also, make sure the room you choose doesn't have a lot of echo. We'll talk about sound quality later in this video. Are you scheduling an outdoor shoot? Depending on your location and weather patterns in your area, having contingency plans always makes good production sense. Are there enough circuits in the room you have chosen? Are power failures and brownouts a problem in your geographic location? Again, plan ahead for worst-case scenarios. Other things to consider might be traffic, crowds, curious onlookers, phones, and other types of disruptions. As stated earlier, we try to think outside the classroom when creating these videos. We generally want creative locations to complement the lesson plan. We understand that using a blackboard may be the only way to convey an equation or formula. We ask you to adhere to these techniques when utilizing a blackboard. We strongly request you do not use whiteboards when shooting stand-ups. Whiteboards tend to cause a lot of glare and should never be used as a prop. Even if you're skilled at lighting, whiteboards are to be avoided. We have actually had problems with talent dressed in white writing on a whiteboard. Please do not shoot someone dressed in white against a white background. Depending on your geographic location, some traditional customs require men to wear white robes and headdresses. If this is the case, please avoid having the talent stand in front of a white background. I know this sounds obvious to some, but this has been a recurring issue. Please make sure your on-camera stand-up backgrounds offer proper contrast to what your talent is wearing. Please be mindful of your backgrounds and take this into consideration during your site surveys. Also, avoid writing on a board while talking. At first glance, this might seem like a good idea. The presenter is writing on a board while talking about what he or she is writing about. The problem with this technique is twofold. One, the back of the presenter's head is constantly facing the camera. Second, most people cannot speak at the same speed they write. As a result, there is a lot of silence while the presenter is writing on the board. Again, we want to keep the students constantly engaged in the subject matter. Instead of writing while talking, try having the presenter write on the board ahead of time before any footage is shot. Then the presenter can point to different areas of the board while still keeping their focus on the camera. Writing on the board ahead of time also ensures that the writing will be clear and large enough. Another creative technique is to record the presenter writing on the board ahead of time without speaking, then record the voiceover separately. The editor can later match the speed of the writing to the voiceover. You might have your own technique. Be creative, but try to avoid writing while talking. We try not to put many restrictions on our presenters when it comes to clothes. But because we serve a global audience, some issues have come up associated with proper attire. First, as you might already know, please have your talent try to avoid wearing all white, all black, or pinstripes. Also, some cultures find it offensive if parts of a woman's body are exposed. As a rule, please have all female presenters cover their arms, shoulders, and legs. This will ensure all videos have the largest reach possible. At Blossoms, quality video is something we constantly strive for. Generally, our videographers have presented us with beautifully shot images and well-framed headshots. We also ask that sound quality meet those same expectations. Sound is one of the most important parts of a production. Even if your shot is not perfectly lit or slightly off frame, the content is not significantly affected. If attention is not paid to mic placement, the audio can end up sounding hollow, which can detract from the overall content and user retention. Here are some rules we ask you to follow when it comes to capturing good audio. Always monitor your camera sound output with headphones. This one simple step can catch most audio problems that might happen during your shoot. Make sure you're monitoring your final source. If you are just monitoring your mixer, you might miss the final link to your camera. Never use your camera mic or shotgun microphone attached to your camera as your main source of audio. A properly placed wireless or wired lavalier mic is your best choice for shooting good quality talking head audio. Another good choice to achieve quality audio is to have a boom operator use a shotgun microphone attached to a boom pole. Make sure the boom operator is using a good quality shock absorber and is also monitoring audio. Try not to shoot in rooms that have an echo or hollow sound. Choose locations that have sound absorption in the ceiling tile or carpeting. Please make sure you take this into consideration when performing your site survey. Blossom modules are interactive and used to stimulate activities and discussions between educators and students. These videos are also being shown to a global audience. Some students will be watching them using large format projectors, while others may be watching them on small television screens. You need to prepare your text and other post-production graphics so they are accessible to everyone no matter what format they are watching them in. Here are some other things to be aware of. Separate each segment of the module with 10 seconds of black. This will enable teachers to have enough time to pause the video and perform an in-class exercise. Are all visual elements large enough to be integrated into a high-definition format? If a picture or graphic is too small, consider not going full screen and only doing a split screen with the presenter. Is the text or visual content large enough so a student in the back of the classroom can see it on a small television? Make sure you use graphics and font sizes that can be seen from a distance. Is there too much content on the screen at one time? This can be a common oversight when displaying formulas and numerical content. If you are presenting a series of numbers or text, try to electronically bring them in one at a time, zoom in, or use highlighting to bring the viewer's attention to the content at hand. Adhere to action and title-safe guidelines. Some schools that don't have a fast internet connection will be ordering these lessons on DVD. For that reason, we still require our editors to be mindful of action and title safe. Does a certain picture, video, graphic, or special effect actually complement the dialogue? As a communications professional, you need to determine if your visuals and effects are communicating a message or just acting as visual fluff. I would rather see a simple transition or talking head than a visual element that doesn't draw you into the content. Just because you have the bells and whistles to do dynamic transitions and effects doesn't mean they are appropriate for all situations. Do you have permission to use that content? You must adhere to copyright laws when using visual content. You can't just go on Google or Yahoo Images and download whatever you want. Many times, shooting B-roll can be less time-consuming than getting access to copywritten materials. A good resource for royalty and cost-free content is Creative Commons, which will be discussed next in this video. Many times we are asked, what is the preferred format for shooting and exporting a Blossoms video? What we recommend is to shoot in the highest quality possible for your camera, either HD 1920 by 1080 or 1440 by 1080, and export QuickTime at HD 1280 by 720. Make sure your videographer and editor agree on video settings prior to shooting any footage. Content-rich modules will hold the viewer's attention longer than just a talking head. With a few internet keystrokes, you will find a plethora of content, but there are rules that need to be adhered to. In particular, MIT is very strict when it comes to following international copyright laws. Creative Commons is a nonprofit organization devoted to expanding the range of creative works available for others to build upon legally and to share. You will get significantly fewer search results using this method than without using Creative Commons, but it's better to play it safe. Just because you can technically rip a YouTube video doesn't make it okay to use. Accessing legally shared material is becoming more accessible all the time. It's your responsibility to adhere to international copyright laws. Here, you should also know that each Blossoms video lesson is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, NonCommercial-ShareAlike 3.0 license. This license lets others remix, tweak, and build upon a Blossoms lesson non-commercially as long as they credit Blossoms and license any new creation under these identical terms. PowerPoint is a great resource for depicting symbols, charts, graphs, and diagrams. PowerPoint can also be difficult to read when too much information is displayed. A good rule of thumb is to avoid PowerPoint when displaying just text. Instead, use your text editor to create your text. It will look clearer than PowerPoint and allow for more creativity. If you need to use PowerPoint, create sequential slides that are easy to read, which don't have a lot of information on each slide. Also, try to zoom into different parts of the slide. That will help the student focus their attention toward the subject matter. You have been chosen as a Blossoms contributor due to your unique abilities and creative skills. We want you to utilize your own creative process and to create modules that will be an important contribution to the Blossoms archive. If you have any content questions regarding your module, please refer to your presenter or content provider. If you have any technical questions on video export settings, please contact MIT AMPS. If you have any general Blossoms questions, please contact Elizabeth Murray. Thank you again for being part of our extended Blossoms family, and we look forward to watching your upcoming videos.